Greetings to my fellow classmate and Madam Sharoniza. I'm ADELYN with matrix number 2858 from Group 1. Represent the violence against women. It's a man issue. In my group, there is Tan Jia Hong, Tay VIYIE, Tan Jia Xing, and Liak Tok Long. Next one. The speaker of the TED Talk is Jackson Katz, which is an anti-sexism educator, and the speech title is Violence Against Women, It's a Man Issue. Next one.
At the first of the speech, the speaker gained audience attention and interest by stating out the issue between man and woman. The speaker has stated out the topics by male versus female to attract audience attention. At the timestamp 0.20, the speaker pointed out the gender violence issue as the issue has been seen as a woman issue that some good men are of it. Secondly, the speaker also storytelling to gain audience attention. At the timestamp 0.40, the speaker took over the audience imagination by telling a scene of all this that give men and accusers not to pay attention. And thirdly, the speaker also mentioned that when most of the people in United States would think of African American, Latino, Asian American when they mention race in their daily life. And all around the world, most people will think of woman only when some people they mention gender. Next.
The speaker used the employees derived types of credibility that discuss his career during his speech since he has successfully developed her credibility as a speaker. The speaker related his speech by telling the audience about his experience. First, the speaker exhibit his knowledge on the subject of gender violence by offering a paradigm-shifting viewpoint and going over a number of topics including sexual assault, domestic violence, relationship abuse, sexual harassment, and child sexual abuse. He also described their involvement in the sphere of domestic and sexual abuse, as well as their work as educators, which shows that he has knowledge and expertise in the area. Second, the speaker used the writings of a feminist linguist named Julia Penlow to bolster their case. The speaker established their authority by making use of scholarly research and adding the opinions of a subject matter expert. Last, the speaker discusses their work with the bystander approach to preventing gender violence, stressing their real-world experience in creating change-oriented tactics. Their credibility is increases by their real-world experience, which also shows how committed they are to finding solutions. Next.
Okay, in Jackson Katz's speech, he addresses the significant role men play in ending violence against women and emphasizes that this is not solely a woman issue. First, recognize the issue as a man issue. He argues that men must take responsibility for their action and challenge the social norms that contributes to the problem. For example, Katz cites a study that found that men were more likely to intervene in a sexist or homophobic situation. The second main point is shifting focus. Katz suggests that shifting the focus from asking, why do women get abused, to asking, why do men abuse women? By reframing the question, responsibility is placed on the perpetrators rather than the victims. The focus helps to reduce the victim blaming and the tendency to solely place the burden on women to protect themselves. Next, engaging the bystanders. He gives an example of a scenarios where a group of men take sexist jokes about women. Instead of remaining silent, he encourages men to speak up, express their disapproval, and hold their peers accountable. Moreover, engaging men as allies. Katz emphasized that the needs for men to engage with other men in conversations about gender-based violence. He suggests that men can influence others by modeling respectful and non-violent behavior. Next.
The speaker uses problem solution order to organize his talk. The speaker first introduces the problem in talk, which the speaker brings out the problem of the topic at the very first of the speech. The speaker emphasized on gender issues at the very first of his speech, and he did mention "I'm a guy, that's for the girls" at the beginning of the speech to point out the problem of gender issue. Next.
In terms of the language, in terms of the resources of the language, the speaker is using assonance. Assonance is a literary device that involves repeating a vowel sound that is the same or very close to another vowel. A speaker uses assonance to generate a rhythm and flow to the speech. For example, ka, wow, how, now. In his speech, he did ask, why do so many men abuse physically, emotionally, verbally, and other ways? It takes from the alley. The second one is the imagery. Imagery is the use of detailed description to convey information an audience or listener. It is an excellent tool for speaker to convey in a more vivid manner how something could seem, smell, feel, or taste. For example, he said in his speech, if you're a guy and you're in a group of guys playing poker, talking, hanging out, no woman present, and another guy says something sexist or degrading or harassing about women. From here, we can see that the speaker is asking the audience to put themselves in the guy's shoes. The last one is the rhetorical question. Rhetorical question is a question that is asked for the purpose of making a point rather than eliciting a response from the audience. The use of rhetorical question is common in persuasion because they make an immediate appeal for the reader's agreement and often highlight things that are already common knowledge. For example, in his speech, he asked the audience, what's going on with men? Why do so many adults men sexually abuse little girls and boys? And why is that a common problem in our society and all over the world today? From this, we can see that the speaker asks rhetorical question not for the audience to answer, but for them to make people think and wait for the answer that will be given through his speech. Next slide.
Alright, now I will proceed with question 6. The first cognitive used by speakers is internal preview. The speaker offers internal preview so that the audience will know what subjects or ideas they will be discussing next. For example, I am going to share with you a paradigm-shifting perspective of the issues of gender violence. The second cognitive used by the speaker is internal summaries. The speaker summarizes their important ideas by using internal summaries. For example, so one of the things that I say to men and my colleagues, and I always say this, is we need more men who have the courage and the strength to start standing up and saying some of this stuff, and standing with women and not against them, and pretending that somehow this is a battle between the sex and other kinds of nonsense. The speaker also used the transitions. Transitions are used by the speaker to flow naturally from one idea or subject to another. Take for example, consider the phrase now obviously, and let me illustrate that confusion by way of analogy. Last but not least, the speaker also used signposts to indicate shifts in the speech structure or to emphasize key points. For example, the first is that it gives men an excuse not to pay attention, right? And this is amazing how this works in domestic and sexual violence, how men have been largely erased from some of the conversation about a subject that is centrally about men. Thus, the speaker makes good use of these connectives to improve speech and intelligibility. Thank you. Next.
For the intonation, the speaker used various intonation. The first one is the following intonation. The following intonation is used when he explains things in his speech. The next one is the rising intonation. It is used when he asks the audience speech. Final intonation. Non-final intonation has speech changes throughout the sentence. The speech was rich in intonation, depending on what emotions the speaker tried to show and highlight in his speech. The next one is the sentence structure. The sentence structure was good and not easy, and it was easily understood because it was not too complex, and the context is so it wasn't out of place. The next one is the volume. In terms of the volume, the speaker speak not too slow and not too loud in his speech. And the last one is the pronunciation. For the pronunciation, the speaker pronounced words clearly, and the words like beaten and sentence was pronounced as beaten and sentence. It was spoken by the speaker with an English accent that was clearly than a native speaker. So it shows that the speaker can really speak English well. Next one.
Okay, so now will be the speaker body during the speech. First, posing and gesturing confidently. Throughout the talk, Kat stood upright with his shoulder back, displaying a confident posture. He used the expansive gesture to emphasize the key points and to engage the audience. Next, we have expressive facial expression. For instance, when discussing the seriousness of violence against women, his facial expression may have shown concerns or seriousness, highlighting the gravity of the issue. Then will be the dynamic hand gesture. When discussing man involvement, he extended his hand forward as if reaching out, symbolized the need to actively engage men. Besides that, eye contact and connection. Katz maintained strong eye contact with the audience. He looked directly at people, making them feel seen and involved in the conversation. Lastly will be the passionate delivery. He gestured with energy and enthusiasm, using his whole body to convey his commitment to addressing violence against women. Next.
To express their viewpoint of gender violence, the speaker mostly used causal reasoning throughout the speech. He provided an explanation of the connection between specific societal beliefs, action, and gender violence-related results. For instance, he contended that framing gender violence as a female issue may cause men to tune out and pay less attention, which exacerbates the situation. He also emphasized how specific inquiries and a focus on women's decisions deflect attention from the fundamental reason of male violence and how victim blaming and cognitive processes play a part in perpetuating violence. Next.
The speaker embraced an emotional approach announced as BINTI. He appeals to the audience empathy by emphasizing the personal and emotional toll that violence against women takes on communities. He highlights the devastating consequences and the urgent need of actions, and it aiming to avoid feeling of concerns, and a sense of responsibility among the listeners. The emotional appeal by speaker is effectively in his speech by focusing on the emotional impact of violence against women. He effectively capture the intentions and empathy of the audience. Emotions can be powerful motivators for actions, and by connecting the issue of violence against women to the audience emotions, he encouraged them to reflect on the gravity of the problem and the needs of collective responsibility. He challenged traditional gender roles and stereotypes, aiming to promote a sense of personal responsibility among men in the audience. This approach can be particularly effective in encouraging men who may not have previously considered their role in addressing violence against women. Overall, by involving empathy and emotional appeals in his speech, he effectively engaged the audience, encouraged empathy, and motivates individuals to take action against women. Next. Now I will present the methods I used to prepare the audience for ending the speech. At the last of speech, the speaker is want to try to sharing emotional connections through comparing stories, statistics, and personal experience, and he establishes a sense of urgency and empathy to the audience. The speech is repetitions and reinforcement for key ideas and arguments. It emphasizing that violence against women and is be like men is issues, and the speech is reinforcing the importance of men's issues involvement in addressing the issues. And the last of speech, the speaker is try to challenging the audience to reflect on their beliefs and actions. Next. And is summarizing main points and returning urgency in the conclusions. And the last, he providing a clear call to action of individuals to contribute the solutions, and he motivating the audience to take actions and be part of ending violence against women.
Okay. The speaker used personification techniques to reinforce the central idea. He used personification techniques by substituting the personalities and humans' behavior in the speech. For example, the speaker mentioned that men can play in the workplace. What is play? Yeah. And in the speech, the speaker mentioned that men actually have more power than women in the workplace. They can speak more than women. And from the side of view, we can see that the discrimination against females and women in the workplace still happening, and men have more power than women in reality. And actually, the, the speaker again mentioned that man needs more strength, more guts, and more integrity to break complicit silence. And the speaker again mentioned that he hoped that men and women can work together, begin the changes and the transformation will be happen in the future generation, so that there's no more discrimination against to the woman in the workplace and in reality. That's all from group one. Thank you.